Welcome back, everybody, to the Mystical Rebel channel here on YouTube. In today's video, I'm going to be reacting to a video that I came across recently. It is about a year old, but I came across this video recently on the Ouija board. Now, you guys know, as an actual occultist, I don't have a high opinion of the Ouija board, but it seems that a lot of non-occultists, a lot of esotericists, a lot of non-mystics put a lot of emphasis on the Ouija board. And there's a crap ton of videos all over YouTube, all over TikTok, any video sharing platform that has content just like this on the Ouija board and why it's evil and why it's a bad thing and all that nonsense. So we're going to go ahead and react to this video, and hopefully some of you will walk away with more knowledge on the actualities of working with a Ouija board from an actual occultist, someone who actually studies and practices occultism, esotericism, and mysticism, of which spirit contact, which is what a Ouija board is used for, you're trying to contact spirits of the dead, spirit contact falls under both occultism and mysticism, depending on the type of spirit that you're trying to contact and the methodology that you're using to contact. In this instance, Ouija boards would fall under occultism. And I can tell you, as an actual occultist who engages in spirit work on a semi-regular basis, Ouija boards, while effective for someone who can actually contact spirits, there are more effective, more efficient, and more accurate methods of spirit contact. I don't know any legitimate occultists who would use a Ouija board. That's not to say that there aren't any out there. I just personally don't know any. It would be like, instead of sending a text message, you write a letter, right? Now, of course, some of you are going to try to troll and say, well, I wish we would go back to writing letters. Herp, derp. Stop. Okay, there's more efficient ways of getting a message to someone other than writing a letter. You can write a letter, sure, but a text message works, a phone call works, an email works. Right? The Ouija board would be like going back to sending letters, right? It takes too long to write it out. Then you got to put it in the envelope. Then you got to stamp it. Then you got to put it in the mail, wait for the mailman to get it. Then it's got to be sent out, all this other stuff, right? Unnecessary when you can just send a text message, when you can just pick up the phone and call them, when you can send a telegram or a WhatsApp or a Facebook Messenger message. Ouija boards are exactly the same way. And while I've not watched any of this content creator's content, I am quite certain that he and most other people who make this type of content over here, right, these types of videos, I am 100% certain that the vast majority, maybe not 100%, but I'm going to go, you know what, I'm willing to put like 98%. 98% of these videos are by people who are not occultists. These are regular people, or they're Christians. These are people who don't work with spirits. These are people who don't study occultism, esotericism, or mysticism. Why would you take spiritual advice from those types of people? I'm not a doctor, right? So why would you listen to anything I have to say about brain surgery? I'm not a brain surgeon. So why would you listen to anything I have to say about that kind of thing, right? You should go talk to someone who is at least in medical school. I am not. So you wouldn't listen to me about brain surgery or any type of medical issue. Why would you listen to someone who doesn't have any actual experience in occultism? Again, which is what spirit contact falls under, esotericism or mysticism. That doesn't make any sense. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. Why I don't fuck with Ouija boards, a true story. So we're going to make this a little bigger, and let's go ahead and get started. Was it from the 90s? The truth.
There are a lot of you that don't know my
So you know it's real. He's doing the interview, you know, the documentary, Netflix documentary style where he's just sitting in the dark and, you know, talking to the interviewer, or in this case, just the camera. So you know it's real.
Much about me and how I came to be the third party with Hunting Purgatory, the investigation series.
So, I hit up Tanner. We were over at his place, and he went out for a bit, and I had some alone time with it myself, so I had turned off all the lights, you know, started staring into it, scrying into it for about 20, 30 minutes or so. And, I mean, later that night, you know me, dude, like, I don't really submit to all that stuff, but, like...
So you don't submit to that stuff, but you were doing it. Why were you taking 20 to 30 minutes out of your day to scry if you don't submit to that stuff, if you don't believe in all of that stuff? That doesn't make any sense to me. It is interesting that he used the word scrying, right? Which lets me know he may have some knowledge, but then I would ask, okay, can you outline the method? Because you just said you just stared into the mirror. That's not scrying, right? There's a prerequisite that you must do in order to effectively scry, and you didn't mention that prerequisite. Now, it doesn't mean that he didn't do the prerequisite. It just means he didn't mention it. So all I'm left to do is assume. And because I don't know this guy, I don't know his content, but because they are paranormal researchers, my assumption is probably correct. He doesn't actually know what scrying is from a practical level. He might know the definition, right? He might know like what it is, which clearly he does. There's a dark mirror right here, or there's a mirror here. I don't know if it's a dark mirror because it's too dark for me to tell, but there's a mirror here. So he's aware, but from a practical perspective, teaching someone how, or explaining to an audience, if he's on a podcast and the host goes, so can you tell us about scrying? Like, what is it? How do you get started scrying, right? What would he respond with? I doubt it's much of anything of substance. He'll probably just repeat what he just said here. Yeah, you just gaze into a mirror or something like that for, you know, a 20, 30 minutes and hopefully images start to come up. No, there's a prerequisite that you need to perform. And, well, maybe perform is a bad word, but there's a prerequisite that must be done in order to effectively scry. And actually, probably two prerequisites. Neither of them were mentioned, but let's continue and see if he gives us something.
I'm leaving his house, and I severely sprained my ankle walking down the street.
I'd known Tanner for many, many years.
From scrying, you simply gazed into a scrying device. I'm guessing that dark mirror there, or some sort of dark mirror, maybe not that one, but some dark mirror, and that's it. Nothing happened. You didn't do the two prerequisites. Nothing happened, because if something happened, you would have said it. You would have said a demon came out, or well, I saw something crazy. So you sprain your ankle and you attribute it to the scrying session where nothing happened. Maybe something did happen. Maybe later on he'll tell us something did happen, but that's a little dubious. We're only not even a minute in, and I already have criticisms. This is crazy.
I've been involved in a lot of things as far as paranormal investigation, but you could say that I was kind of born to do this.
You were born
Most
to
of my
do
life,
this? Stop.
Growing up, I lived on Indian burial ground in Northern California. I experienced many, many things around my neighborhood that remains unexplained to this day. There's a ton of history. If you want to look it up yourself, I'll leave some links below so you can kind of verify the area that I'm talking about.
Sure.
This is the first time I've gone on camera to explain what it is that is my major aversion towards things such as Ouija boards.
Yes,
when I was 3 or 4 years old, I moved from a
your
historic
aversion
area
to
in San Jose, California, to a place in South San Jose known as Campbell. It was just far enough away from my old house to have to change schools and find completely new friends, and in doing so, we kind of got into a lot of things that, I mean, kids get into. The 90s was a time where, you know, a 6, 7, 8-year-old could kind of like bounce around town with his friends and not really worry about it. We didn't have cell phones. It was a very come home before the street lights turn on kind of environment that we lived in. And as we got older, we got a little bit more freedom. Our parents trusted us a little bit more, and they trusted that we had good judgment not to get ourselves involved in negative situations.
Come on, man.
I didn't live in the best neighborhood. Very mixed
the video's only 18
socioeconomic
minutes,
group.
but geez,
there was your
come
standard
on.
drug
Let's
houses.
get
There
to
was
the
people
ghost
that
stuff.
parents were business professionals and
And I'm
entrepreneurs.
afraid to skip ahead
And we
in
kind
the
of
event
existed
that,
in the
like,
same
I missed
neighborhood around
something.
each other, where we all went to the same school, San Anselmo Elementary. And right up the street was Bernal Middle School. So around that was the Santa Teresa Mountains. It's what separates San Jose from Santa Cruz. And it's well known to be an area that was inhabited by Native Americans for many, many centuries before we arrived. When I started approaching my preteen years, it was not uncommon for me to skateboard off with my friends, go jump a light rail, and tell our parents we were at the park. We used to explore those mountains. We had a lot of areas like Dottie's Pond, and that was the site of a young girl who was being bullied by a couple other older girls who ended up getting pushed into the pond, and at the very bottom of it was nothing but what would be known as quicksand or really thick mud, and she was sucked in and she drowned. That area was fenced off for my entire youth. We used to go like hang around there because it was a scary place to go where someone had passed away, and you know, kids are interested in that kind of thing. But as I was growing up, I started experiencing a lot more things in my own home that were unexplained. I would see objects move in my own house. I would see things, especially in my kitchen area, be knocked over.
Why does this stuff only happen to either paranormal investigators, or it only happens to people who were into the occult and then converted to Christianity, right? Why don't we ever hear like Muslims say things like this, or Buddhists say things like this, or atheists say things like this? It's always a certain group or groups of people, right? It's always just the paranormal people. Yeah, these people who go out and do ghost hunts and investigations and all that other stuff, or it's people who claim, because I also have content where I debunk these former witches, former occultists, former Satanists who converted to Christianity, and it's always evangelical Christianity. They never convert to, I don't know, Jehovah's Witness, or they never convert to, you know, Lutheran or Presbyterian or Episcopalian. It's always Pentecostal. They always go to the Pentecostal church. It's the craziest thing. But it's always those groups of people, those two groups. The former witch, former psychic, former occultist, now I'm a Christian, that group. Or it's the group that this guy would belong to, the paranormal researchers, the investigators. This never happens to regular people. And I certainly don't know any real occultist who actually engages with spirits on a veritable level that you can repeat to that has these issues. At least on the regular. Maybe during contact, maybe even occasionally immediately after contact, there might be residual energies hanging around. And so there might be poltergeist activity to an extent. But just living in the home, not doing any magic, not getting in touch with spirits, I've never heard of that outside of ghost stories. I don't know of any real account of people who say these things. And I find that very, very interesting.
My sister would walk home from school and we'd see, you know, like a complete disarray, thinking to ourselves like, man, dad must have been in a hurry to leave the house, or mom must have been in a hurry to leave the house when she dropped us off to school and then just left us here. So when you're a kid, you don't think that deep on things like that. So as I grew older and I started hearing the lore about the area that I lived in, it became more and more obvious to me that I was experiencing something that I was being told didn't exist, sort of. Because when you're a kid, you're growing up, and before you're conditioned to believe, oh, ghosts don't exist and this doesn't happen and that's all make-believe. Before you're conditioned to do that, you're really seeing things through your own eyes, seeing things as they happen, being present in the experience of seeing something unknown happen. I remember an instance where there was a holiday party at my sister's middle school. The site of her school is a crazy place alone. I mean, there's a story that you can actually probably look up online still. There was a book in her library that actually told about it, of a Native American tribe that was slaughtered by settlers. They literally lived all around our area, the base of the Santa Teresa Mountains. And there was a curse placed on the land, allegedly. People still say that they see apparitions of Native Americans, specifically a young girl in full regalia, beads, headdress, everything, walking around the campus and the area around the campus. So one night we're at this holiday party. Ironically, it was a Halloween party. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was October 29th, 1999.
Also, in regards to the ghost girl walking around the campus, I don't understand why it's never has it happened. At least that I've seen. If someone has evidence of this happening, please send it my way. But why is it that these investigators, or when these stories happen, they never contact witches or shamans or sorcerers or magicians? And I mean that in the legitimate magic way, not the stage magic. I don't mean contact David Blaine or Chris Angel. I mean magicians in the ceremonial magical sense, right? People who practice theurgy, people who practice high magic, ceremonial magic, lodge magic, things like that. They would call themselves magicians or magus or magi if we're talking multiple, things like that. Why don't they contact those types of people? Why is it always a paranormal investigator who, again, does not study or practice occultism, esotericism, or mysticism, again, of which spirit contact falls under, or they go and they contact priests, and it's always a Catholic priest, as if Catholic priests have a monopoly on getting rid of spirits. You can't go and ask Pastor so-and-so of the Baptist church up the street. You can't ask Minister so-and-so of the Presbyterian church up the street. You can't ask Reverend so-and-so of the Episcopalian church up the street. It's only Father so-and-so of Saint whatever up the street. Only the Catholics have the ability to remove spirits for some reason. No other denomination within Christianity is able to remove spirits, only the Catholics. People don't ask these questions. People just watch a video like this and they either don't believe it because they're a total skeptic, or they fully believe this guy. Nobody goes, okay, he could be telling the truth. He could not be. Let's ask some logical questions. Let's do some critical thinking here. Right? He's obviously aware of scrying, or if it wasn't him, it was the other guy, whoever. The team he's on is obviously aware of scrying. Scrying is a practice that is used in the occult. I find it hard to believe that you came into the knowledge of scrying and didn't come across something occult. Some sort of occult text, occult author, whatever. But for some reason, they never want to dive into that. Everybody loves to flirt with the occult. They love to go right to the edge, but they never want to step over the line for whatever reason. Whether it's fear or what, I don't know. But why is it that witches or actual occult practitioners, actual occultists, they're never called on for these ghost hunts, right? It's always psychics, or like a medium or a psychic medium, a paranormal investigator, or a Catholic priest. That's it. That's it. There's actually a witch, J. Allen Cross. He wrote a book called The Witch's Guide to the Paranormal. It's right here. This is not a promo or anything. I don't get any money off this or anything, but this guy right here, J. Allen Cross. He wrote this book because when he moved to, I think it's Colorado, but don't get me lying. But when he moved to whatever state he lives in now, maybe it was Washington State, I don't know. But when he moved to that state, he was a witch and he wanted to use his witchcraft abilities and expertise to help local ghost hunting groups. So he reached out. And he basically said, hey, listen, if you don't have anybody on your team that can effectively communicate, I can do so. I would love to come along. You know, he reached out to a few of them. I would love to come along and help you guys out. They all responded, hey, we don't know how to get in touch with ghosts. They literally told him this. We don't know how to get in touch with ghosts. All we do is record. So since you know how to get in touch with ghosts, how about we come along with you? And he was like, wait, what? And this is in the book, in the introduction in paragraph 2, not buried on page 200 or whatever. It's in the introduction on paragraph 2. He states that when he entered the paranormal community, he assumed that people who claim to be able to get in touch with spirits and get rid of spirits, they actually know what they're doing. But when he actually went on these ghost hunts with people, he found out that they don't know what they're doing. that most ghost hunting teams only record. It's ridiculous. And the ones that go beyond recording with their hunting devices, their spirit box and the Dybbuk box and all these other little devices that are supposed to help you contact spirits, no one can explain how they would be able to get in touch with spirits. We just have to believe that your modified AM FM radio, because that's exactly what a spirit box is. You don't got to believe me. Google how to build your own spirit box, and then open up another tab and Google how to build your own AM FM radio and compare the instructions. It's literally the same thing with a few modifications. You're using a radio that your dad or your grandpa, depending on how old you are, would have gotten from Radio Shack 20 years ago. Just a regular handheld radio. That's all a spirit box is. How is that getting in touch with spirits of the dead? How? No one's able to explain that. They just say, oh, the spirits can use the waves to communicate. How? And if they can do that, why can we never have a full conversation? It's always yes, yellow, down. It's like a bunch of nonsense and then one word we can make out. It's never a full two-way conversation. Why? You know who can have full two-way conversations with spirits? Witches, occultists. Not your spirit box. Not your Dybbuk box. Not your little wave meters. It's the most ridiculous thing. Let's continue.
And there's a bunch of games. There's bobbing for apples. There's like there's prizes to be won, little toys, gifts, whatever. They have a cakewalk, things like that. But there was a back gym section of my sister's school that they used for make a basket or throw the bean bags, knock the teeth out of the little smiling guy and get a kazoo or some sort of noisemaker or something as a prize. And I remember this instance pretty vividly that we were kind of all standing there. I was in line. I was like second or third in line to do the basketball game. And all of a sudden the lights start flickering and then they shut off completely. And in the corner of the room, there's these two emergency doors. Those fly open. And I could see clear as day with the emergency lights that are outside that no one's holding them open. A gust of wind comes in and
I love how this stuff only happens during a time when there were no cameras in everyone's pocket, and HD cameras at that, right? We just got to believe these stories, right? There's never been a time when there's a young teen at his prom or whatever, and he's recording on his phone, and then something like that happens, right? That doesn't happen. These stories are from quality cameras on one cell phone. Why doesn't that stuff happen now? Why doesn't it happen now? And the stories that we do hear about it happening now, no one had their phone out. Or it happens, and I'm not trying to be mean here, or it happens in like third world countries or something like that. Come on, man. Come on. We should be seeing this stuff now. We should be seeing this stuff now. No one's ever live streaming, just vibing with their audience, and a paranormal thing happens. No. No one's just, recording themselves or even streaming, walking through the mall or walking through, not doing anything paranormal related, and something happens. And they keep recording. It's not some little clip. They keep recording. So we have a full video to analyze. I'm tired of watching these little clips that end right after the thing happens. It's like, well, bro, come on. Nonsense.
Like a horror movie starts swirling in the middle of the room, and it starts picking up all sorts of things: popcorn, bags, trash, paper. And as it swirls for a couple seconds, it starts gusting towards the wall, and it goes out the other emergency exit door. And as soon as the gust of wind carries all that debris out, the lights turn back on, and all the parents are looking at each other going, ooh, crazy, scary, as if someone set it up. But in hindsight, even being a 9-year-old, I've always been a very mentally confident person.
Maybe someone did set it up. If the adults aren't freaking out, this is something that either happens often. Maybe it was one of those little dust tornadoes or whatever. Assuming this really happened, right? I don't believe it happened. But if it did happen, Either it was set up. I don't know why that's such a far-fetched thing. Not everything that is unexplainable is a supernatural thing or deals with spirits. And that's another thing with these people and Christians and all that other stuff. You got to stop that. Not everything that happens that you don't have an explanation for is due to a spirit or a demon or there's a ghost in the house. Come on, man. Stop that.
And what I know now is that that is something that without a Hollywood budget cannot be orchestrated at all. It was a paranormal experience for sure. And I don't
know how much you know about movies, but I've seen some well done movies on shoestring budgets. You can do quite a bit, especially if the people who are helping you out aren't that well versed or aren't like professionals, right? I know a lot of films, not Hollywood, not $200 million blockbusters, but there are films out there that to save money, instead of going to like a professional editor or something like that, they'll hire some college kid who's in film school and knows how to edit or whatever, but he's not going to charge you $110,000 to edit. He just wants to make sure he can pay tuition and get some pizza and beer. So you give him $5,000, he's good. That happens. So you don't need, I'm not saying that's what happened here, but you don't need a Hollywood budget in order to open some doors and have a little dust thing come in, a little dust tornado come in. You don't need a Hollywood budget for that. You don't need a Hollywood budget for that. But I don't think it happened anyway, so.
I can't let go of those type of memories in my mind. So those type of instances are what got me interested in the paranormal field in general. As time went on, I was a crazy young kid. I started getting interested in it. I mean, obviously, I was your standard, like, Goosebumps reading, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Nickelodeon kind of kid. But when I was getting into my preteens, my friends and I had developed this interest around the paranormal, and that was the time I had originally heard about Ouija boards. I remember telling my friends at school, one of which is now a Patreon subscriber to us, growing up that I thought my house was haunted. I thought that there was activity going on there. And a lot of the kids at school would think, I'm crazy or, I'm making this story up for attention. But I stayed adamant on it. I mean, I went to that school from 2nd grade till I was in 6th grade. And my story really never changed. I was telling people, what was crazy is, a lot of them lived on the same ground that I lived on. They lived on this ground that was just completely embedded with Native American body parts and bones and artifacts and all sorts of stuff that might contain some sort of mystical energy. A friend of mine's older sibling.
So why would they be haunting you? In order to get revenge on their people being slaughtered? Then they would do something more than just send in a little dust storm. They would do something more than just you seeing an apparition walking around campus. That doesn't make any sense. If the ghosts are upset and they're haunting you to get revenge, then it will be a real horror movie, and they should be grabbing weapons like knives and things like that. You should be seeing floating knives chasing people down the street or whatever. But so the ghost gets revenge by just walking. That's it. Ooh, so spooky. What? Come on.
Actually had a Ouija board, and he had access to it, and he had mentioned to us, hey, my older brother has this Ouija board that he used to play with his friends, and he says he won't touch it anymore. He won't even let me play with it. And so for about 6 months,
but he still has it. Didn't throw it out, didn't burn it, the things that we learn you're supposed to do apparently with these things. Didn't throw it out, didn't burn it. He kept it, but he's never going to use it again. Come on, man.
He teased about it and said, we should do the Ouija board, we should do this. We're all ages, 11 to 13, 14 years old. Finally, one day it was dusk, and we were out in the hills of Santa Teresa Mountains, and we came across this old stable. I'm talking, the thing was about to fall. It was this old, dilapidated wood horse stable that was just a covering to keep the rain off of their animals. And it was about dusk when we started walking down the hill, and we heard the sound of hooves. And that's not uncommon for the area necessarily, because people do have horses up there, but it sounded like a lot of hooves. You start hearing this gallop sounding like multiple horses, and then we started hearing shrieks and cries, and the only way I can describe it is it sounded like Native American warriors charging into battle. I have no other way to put it. I really don't. And later that night he was teasing, saying we should go back up there and we should do a Ouija board. And it was a Saturday night, so we decided that we were going to go ahead and do it. We told our parents that we were staying the night at each other's houses. Very common thing growing up. I'm sure a lot of you understand what I'm talking about. So that way we were kind of accounted for, and we took the Ouija board and a handful of candles. I'm talking like scented candles and stick candles and tiny little candles left over from Halloween for jack-o'-lanterns. And we took them into the middle of the canyon where the horse stable was. So the oldest of us was 13, and he had brought a lighter from home so he could go ahead and light the candles. And we had no idea what to expect from this. We just kind of like sat around in a circle, and we started asking questions. We were getting up from the circle, sitting back down. We were taking our hands off and picking our noses, whatever the hell we were doing. There were 4 of us. 3 of us sat in the circle and participated, and the sister of one of my friends sat outside of it because she was too afraid to participate based on things she'd heard from her older siblings and things she'd seen on TV. And we decided that we were going to do our first ever Ouija board seance. So we sat there and we asked questions. Are you a Native American? Did you die here?
So that's it, right? This is why Ouija boards don't work. Spirits are not just waiting around for you to use a board with letters and numbers and yes, no on it in order to communicate with you. Okay? People who don't know how to communicate with spirits, like through evocation, through dream work, through astral projection, gate walking, whatever, people who don't know how to get in touch with spirits, spirits will contact you in your dreams if they need to get in touch with you. That's how spirits interact with humanity for those who don't know how to get in touch with them. They come to you in your dreams. They're not waiting for you to go to a barn with your friends and use a Ouija board. Notice he didn't give us any preliminary ritual setup. There was no, they just sat around in a circle, lit some candles, and started using the board. There was no invocation done. There was no evocation. There was no conjuration. There was nothing done to get the attention of a spirit. No offerings were given, right? They didn't get into an altered state of consciousness. So how would you even be able to communicate with a spiritual force, right? Without being in a spiritual state. You're in your full waking conscious state. In order to get in touch with spirits and effectively communicate, if you're not in the if it's not in your dreams, which you're already in that state because you're sleeping, so you're in that altered state, you would need to be in an altered state in order to effectively communicate. That was one of the prerequisites I was talking about earlier at the beginning, where he didn't give us any prereqs for the scrying. Now I don't know if it was him, it was probably someone on the phone, his friend or whatever, or partner in this thing or whatever, but they didn't give us any prereqs. It was just, I just scryed into the mirror or I just scryed into the thing for 20, 30 minutes. Did you get into an altered state of consciousness? No? Is your third eye open? Do you know how to open your third eye? Is that open? Because that's kind of important for scrying. You can't just gaze into a scrying device and get images and visions. You need to have your third eye open. You need to be able to get into an altered state of consciousness. Same thing here. We don't have any indication that they did anything magical or occult to get in touch with the spirit. They just sat down, lit some candles, and started asking questions to the board. How and why? I need a paranormal investigator to tell me how and why would just that work to get a spirit. It does not. It does not. The reason it does not. So what I'm about to do, tell you the reason why it doesn't work. I need someone to give me the reason why it does work, and not just, oh, you don't know what you're talking. Oh, pish posh, you don't get it. You're so close-minded. Oh, you bigot, blah, blah, blah. Instead of the ad hominems, prove me wrong and give me the occult, the esoteric, or the mystical foundation for how what he's saying would work. Simply gathering your friends, sitting in a circle, lighting some candles, and asking questions to the board. How does that constitute spiritual contact? I'm going to tell you how it doesn't, right? The reason Ouija boards don't work, at least without someone who knows how to contact spirits, is because they are, number one, mass produced. Most of them are made by the same company that makes Monopoly, the Parker Brothers. So unless Monopoly is also summoning demons, the Ouija board wouldn't be able to summon demons, right? But that's on a lesser scale. The main reason is because the Ouija board isn't active. It's a piece of plastic or cardboard or whatever, laminated, to look cool, and that's it. In order for you to get any spiritual energy or power or anything, and I don't mean you getting powers, I mean to give it spiritual power, it would need to be activated by someone who knows occultism, esotericism, or mysticism. It's no different than any other materia magica in the occult. If I go to the store and buy candles, I need to bless and consecrate those candles. I shouldn't just be taking those candles home and using them in my spiritual practice. I should be cleansing those candles. I should be blessing and consecrating those candles to the working. For me and my practice, it will be blessed through my ancestors and then through the 7 planetary spirits. Who blessed this Ouija board? Who consecrated the Ouija board? Who activated the Ouija board? No one. At least that he's telling us. Now, the problem with videos like this sometimes, not his video, my video, is that people like him and other influencers, other aspiring influencers can watch this video and go, okay, in order to get more people to believe me, I just need to say this Ouija board is active. This board was consecrated, blessed, and activated. So now I can't be debunked. You can still be debunked. People who actually have occult knowledge will follow that up with more questions. We shouldn't just believe you, just like you shouldn't just believe me. But who activated that board? Who blessed and consecrated that board? I'm willing to bet no one. That's the main reason why Ouija boards don't work. At least for you, the majority. It needs to be blessed, consecrated, and activated. And then someone who knows how to contact spirits can utilize it to get in touch with spirits. I wouldn't recommend it. There are far more effective, far more efficient, and far more accurate methods of spirit communication out there. But it can be done. I just don't recommend it.
Were you involved in any battles? And this went on for like 20, 30 minutes. We were getting up out of the circle, coming back, like nothing official. We didn't know the rules of the board. The board was extremely old. I don't know if it came with instructions when he took it from his brother's closet or whatever, but it definitely wasn't present inside the box. So as we...
Instructions from the Parker brothers or whatever manufacturing company made his brand or his version of the Ouija board. Because I know some people are going to say, mine's not made from the Parker brother. I got mine at a flea shop. La, la. Okay. But there are Ouija boards made by the Parker brothers. And I believe one of the first manufacturers to mass produce them was the Parker brothers. So you're looking for instructions from a game manufacturer, a board game manufacturer. Do you really think a board game manufacturer is going to give you legitimate methodologies to get in touch with spirits? Why don't people use critical thinking? We just believe he's on camera. He's on camera. He must be telling the truth. No, he's not. You shouldn't just automatically assume that because he's on camera that he's telling the truth. And that goes with me. You shouldn't just assume I'm telling you the truth. That's why I usually give foundation and background when I make a claim. You don't got to believe me. You can either do it yourself, here's the instructions, or you can go check out these 4 or 5 texts that will back it up with evidence themselves, bibliographies. So that way you can do further study. This guy is not giving any of that.
We do the Ouija board, we're starting to all like get a little bit more scared, a little bit more on edge, and we decide to call it quits and blow the candles out. So this is where it gets really heavy, and this is where it becomes hard for me to talk about. And
I'm sure.
It's one of those things where every time I tell this story, I don't want to say that I start crying, but like it's almost like I can't control the water coming from my face. So I can't attribute exactly this event to it. It was just too close afterwards. It was too close afterwards for me not to think that it might have had something to do with it. Another friend that I was with, he was a year younger than me, and he was there participating in the Ouija board. I'm not going to say his name for privacy. The person that is watching this, there might be 1 or 2 people that knew me growing up that is watching this. They know exactly who I'm talking about. We left, and
so there's going to be no way to verify this, right? Just like we can't contact any of the parents who saw the dust tornado come in and the lights go out. There's no way for us to verify any of this. We just have to believe you.
Basically, when we left and we went back to my house, he was quiet. He wasn't really his normal, usual self. Very bubbly, very active, very chattery kind of kid. He just seemed like something was off about him.
That?
This is the type of friend that I hung out
it
with
must
like
be
every
like
single
Cuts.
day. His mom would take us to the skate park. We would go pretty much everywhere together. We would lie for each other to make sure that our bases were covered. Monday came around, and at school I was looking for him and I didn't see him. So I called his house and I asked his mom, and she said that he wasn't feeling well and that he's kind of been like quiet and like in his own room, and she doesn't know what happened. She asked me a bunch of questions with what had happened over the weekend, and like I obviously was scared. I wasn't going to tell her like, hey, we lied and said we were staying at night at each other's houses, and we took a Ouija board from so-and-so's older brother and we went and played with it on Indian burial ground in the middle of the canyon we weren't supposed to be at, in the middle of the...
Wait, so that's another thing. I was going to bring it up earlier, but I was like, maybe he's just using it as like a colloquialism or something like that. But so each of your friends told their respective parents that they're going to another friend's house to spend the night. So that way you're all accounted for, as he said. The only way that would work is if you guys did not come home at all that night. You stayed out on the Indian burial, or wherever you were, Indian River, or wherever you said you were. You stayed out there under the horse barn or whatever all night. From whenever time you got out there, let's just say, I don't know. I know he said they went around 6, but then he said later on that night we went out. So let's just call it 10 p.m. So from 10 p.m. until 7, 8, 9 a.m. the next morning, you were out there. Or else one of you or all of you would have went back home to your respective homes, and your parents would have been like, I thought you're staying at so-and-so's house. So you would have been caught in the lie right there. Or you would have all had to go back to someone's house and spend the night like you were doing for real. But then that person's parent would be like, hey, I don't mind if all your friends stay here, but I thought you said you were going to his house. So how does this story really work? Right? You gotta critically think. It could be just a slip up of the words, blah, blah, blah. But he's coming back now again with the whole, we lied to our parents and we couldn't tell them that we were really out somewhere. So where were you? You were out there all night long. Maybe you were. I doubt it though. Especially if there was a girl with you who wasn't really into it, blah, blah. She wouldn't have sat there for 10 hours while you guys did your thing. 2 hours max. And then you guys would have went home. So how's the story really work?
Tonight. Again, this is one of those like really heavy situations because you have to understand the mental state someone's in, especially at that young of an age, to be able to do something like this. So a few days went by and I still hadn't had any contact with him. I'm already starting to feel it. I hadn't had any contact with him. And it was Tuesday, it was Wednesday, it was Thursday, it was Friday. I hadn't spoken at all. A couple of weeks go by, and we find out that he is just...
I'm guessing that his friend is no longer with... Now, I know we're about to get into some morbid stuff here, and people are going to get all up in arms. But since we can't verify, there's no way to tell if he's telling the truth or not. But based off of the blurring it out or whatever, he's probably no longer with us, right? And if it is real, RIP to that person, especially at such a young age. That's insane that, kids go through that sort of a thing. To have those thoughts, to want to no longer be present on Earth in a physical manner. That does suck, and RIP to him if it is real. But I don't know. This is a little hard to believe, especially, with all the other questions and criticisms that I've had. Not saying that his friend really didn't pass on, but did it have anything to do with this? Because I don't believe this happened. Not the friend passing on, but the Ouija board stuff. Right? But that's morbid, and RIP to his friend. Yeah, let's just move on.
So profound to me. It's like this is a time in life where there should really be no stress. You're a kid, what could possibly be affecting you?
True.
In that kind of way at that young of an age. Like, we didn't hear anything from his mom. I mean, rightfully so. Like, she's probably traumatized and extremely sad, as all of us were. But something intuitive inside of me, my intuition was saying that it had something to do with what we had done in the canyon that night. And for many, many years, I took a lot of responsibility for it. I thought I saw him as a person that looked up to me as a role model, and the older friend that we were with, he would look to us for like guidance and look up to us. And I think as an adult, I understand how much more powerful and profound that really is. What would cause you to do something like that?
Yeah. Call your love. That was actually, I'm not being sarcastic. That was actually some really good advice. Call your loved ones. Let them know that you love them. Friends, if you haven't talked to them in a while, you never know what people are going through. So yeah, definitely let people know that you're there for them, and that if they ever need to talk to you, that they certainly can do so without any judgment or anything like that. You never know what people are going through. The people who smile the most could also very well be hurting the most. So I certainly do agree with what he said there. Definitely call your loved ones, friends, family, especially the ones that you haven't talked to in a while, and let them know that you're there, you care, and if they need to, talk to you, if they need you to lend an ear, that you're there to do so in a judgment-free zone. So definitely, probably the only props I'm going to give this guy during this video. That was some good advice.
Seemingly out of nowhere is still beyond me. It's something I've wrestled with the majority of my life. It's not about doing these things and taking these risks and what's going to happen to you in the next few hours.
It's not a risk.
Or what's going to happen to you tomorrow or during this
Ouija boards are not
period of
risks.
time that you're doing a Ouija board session. It's more about how it's going to affect you in a couple days, a week, a month, or maybe not affect you, maybe affect someone that you love.
It's not.
It's a risk as an adult I've been apprehensive to take, and I wish I had more foresight. I wish I had more foresight as a young person in regards to thinking these things are a game.
They are, for the most part.
So now those of you that have wondered know, and those of you that have called me scared or a pussy, understand where it's coming from. And also, I never get a chance to really convey how I feel about that, and I just want to say thank you.
Okay, now
You have no idea the experience that I have with this type of stuff, and you have no idea the effects it's had on me mentally and emotionally, and the people that I love. My choice to get involved with this is purely based on the need for answers and closure for some of these things. So for those of you that are respectful and understand that a lot of these things we do are nothing to toy with, and this is a very, very serious...
So you want closure and you want answers. After this, after I'm done, I'm going to go through your content and see if you have any videos where you're going into the occult, because that's where you're going to find your answers. That's why I'm so confident in the things that I'm saying, because I'm an occultist. I don't have the answers for every single thing. I have the answer for this. I have the answer for, and so does any other occultist worth their salt who's ever worked with spirits for, I mean, at least a year or two on like a legitimate, veritable evocation, invocation, conjuration type of a basis. Right? Astral projection, lucid dreaming, gate walking, whatever. That's where the answers lie, in the occult. You want closure, you have to study. I'm not saying practice the occult. Not everybody's meant to practice, but I do agree with Dion Fortune, who said that something along the lines of everyone would be for all the better or for the better, something like that, if they just understood the techniques and the methodologies of occultism, esotericism, and mysticism. She said this in Applied Magic, her book Applied Magic. So if you want answers, if you want closure, you have to go to the occult. You making all these paranormal videos, that's great for your content and clout and all that other stuff. That's fine. But if you want answers, if you want closure, you have to come to the occult, the esoteric, and the mystical communities. That's where you're going to find the answers. It's not hard. Because I know some people are going to say, well, we don't know where to go. Bullcrap. You do know where to go. You just don't know where to look when you go there. Which I don't understand. Because if I were to ask you how to look up, something about, a celebrity's baby or something like that, you know exactly what to type into Google for that. But for some reason, you have no idea what to type into Google for legitimate occultism. How about occultism? Why don't you go on Amazon and type in occultism? Press enter. I'm not saying that every single book that's going to come up is going to be a legitimate book by a legitimate occultist, but that's a good start. Why not, when you walk into your local Barnes & Noble, you go to their metaphysical or their new age, or maybe they might even call it witchcraft section? Because that's where these types of books are going to be. And I hate that they clump the new age and all that into one, but, it's a store of non-occultists. So what do you expect? That's what you do. Google occultism. Google occult publishers, occult books, things like that. Go on Amazon, type in occult books, esoteric books, mystical books. And you'll get endless suggestions on what to do, where to go, where to begin with your studies, not your practice. I mean, that'll be there too, but I'm not advocating for everyone to practice the occult, but I am advocating everyone, or at least people who are interested in this kind of thing, to at least study it. You should study it. I think his name is Colton. You should study occultism. Almost done here.
This is a very, very serious thing to get involved with.
It's not.
Regardless of us editing it to make it an entertaining show.
Spirit work is very serious to get involved with. This is not spirit work. This is some paranormal nonsense.
We go to the darkest and scariest, most active places that are known to man. You can look them up on Google.
Yeah, sure. These places might actually be haunted or whatever. You're not getting in touch with anything there. Hundreds of years of people telling stories and testimonials of these negative effects these places have had, the entities they've experienced. Any of you who wish to follow in our footsteps, understand that you're opening yourself up to things that there may or may not be a remedy for. There is a remedy for it.
Anyway, that's my story.
The problem is you don't know anything about occultism. Thank you. You don't know anything about occultism. It says that there's a minute and something left, but it's probably just like credits and all that. Yeah. Okay. You don't know anything about occultism. And I'm going to check out your page right now. Colton's Unknown Encounters, 48K. Nice. While my TikTok is popping, I can barely get 1K here on YouTube. But hopefully that'll change soon. So let's see. Scariest night of my life, terrifying with a tormented child spirit, most horrifying, real life zombies. Okay, I mean, come on, man. Crazy scary videos, the Ouija board, America's Scariest. So no actual, here, let me go to videos. No occultism, no like, oh, okay, he doesn't have that many videos, I guess. Okay. I guess he has more shorts than anything. Or not. Okay. So no, doesn't look like does he do lives? One live he did a year ago. First live stream, Paranormal Investigator Explains. Yeah. I would love to have these types of people on like my TikTok or my website and interview them and really ask them the questions that the audience should be asking, but they don't know to ask, right? His audience doesn't know to ask the questions that I brought up during the video because they don't study occultism. I recommend, if you are interested in spirit work, you study occultism. A good first place to start is the book that I showed earlier by J. Allen Cross, The Witch's Guide to the Paranormal. That's at least directly in a direct response to this kind of a thing, right? Other books, Spirit Conjuring for Witches, which is really not that great, but if you don't know much of anything, it's a good place to start, I guess. Or the Book of Summoning, or, you know, something along those lines, are better because they're more occult and they deal directly with occultism. But a good place to start is J. Allen Cross's The Witch's Guide to the Paranormal. I urge you, before you believe any of these and not just him, anybody claiming paranormal anything, anybody claiming to channel you know, your ancestors, like your passed on grandma, or someone who claims that they can get in touch with aliens and, oh, they're channeling the Galactic Federation and the Arcturian Brotherhood of Friendship and all this other nonsense. Compare it to what actual occultism, actual esotericism, actual mysticism has said since pretty much time immemorial, since we first had writings. Right, going all the way back to the Sumerian cuneiform tablets, which most of them don't have anything spiritual on there. I know Billy Carson and all these people want you to believe that the majority of the cuneiform tablets is some Bible or some spiritual thing. Most of them are just ledgers for like grain and crops and stuff like that. Oh, we got a shipment of 10,000, you know, I don't know, barrels of whatever. We still need 5 more, and we'll send John 2. You know, that's what most of the cuneiform tablets talk about. Not to say that there aren't any that have spiritual wisdom and whatever, but since time immemorial, when writing was first happening, there have been rituals written down in order to reach out and contact spirits. Never in the history of ever did anyone say, just sit around, light some candles, and you'll be able to talk to the spirits. There was always ritual protocol, going all the way back to ancient times, up through till now. We can look back at the mystery religions of Greece, of Egypt, of Rome, of the Chaldeans, the Mithraic mysteries, the Sumerian mysteries, and I mean the real, not the Zecharia Sitchin nonsense, the real Sumerian mysteries, the real Mesopotamian mysteries. We can look at them all the way up through to today. Witchcraft, sorcery, chaos magic, as much as I don't like it, theurgy, or even ATRs and ADRs like Santeria, Kimbanda, Umbanda, Kindoki, Hoodoo, Voodoo, Haitian Voodoo, New Orleans Voodoo. These modern day practices, from ancient times up till now, there is ritual protocol to get in touch with spirits. No one is going to say, yep, just walk into the graveyard, press on your spirit box, and boom, you're ready to contact the spirits. No one would ever, other than these people, no legitimate occultist, no legitimate spiritualist, no legitimate witch, sorcerer, shaman, magician, whatever, would ever agree that that's how you get in touch with spirits. Please study the occult, study the esoteric, study the mystical, and I promise, for you, Colton, and anyone else out there, all your answers, or all your questions, I should say, will be answered. You will finally get the closure that you're looking for. Seek the mysteries.